Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Touchdown Nerdcast. We've got Jordan and myself, Andrew, with you today. No Frank. Frank is on dad duty. Um, Pretty soon, he's got to let his kids just be flying solo.
Just abandon them.
Yeah, just no oversight at all as a parent.
They'll
hmm
be fine.
Yeah, I think they would be fine too. Um, so it's just me and Jordan for this episode. It is Friday, September 1st. We have games starting in 6 days. Next Thursday is the league opener game.
That's right.
Um, and we're going to be talking about uh, some draft strategy out of the sixth spot in PPR. And we're going to talk about what I like to call a boxty today. So, Jordan, do you know what a boxty is?
I have no idea what that is.
All right. That's because I made it up. Um,
Sounds about right.
but I'm going to define it for us right now. Um, a box D is when the same position gets all drafted next to each other and the person who's next in line. So let me explain that. Say that you have the 11th overall pick. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
And so then you also have pick 14, 12, 13, 14 on the turn.
Yep.
Okay. So you pick a running back at pick 11, and then the person who has the last pick in the round and the first pick in the next round also picks running back 12, 13. And then your pick comes back up and you also pick running back. So
Okay.
that's what I'm calling a box D when you and the person next to you draft the same position
Back to back.
back to
Or
back. Yeah, to
yep.
back. Or, so basically you take a running back right before they were about to take a running back, and then they take a running back right before you were, or wide receiver. And then it could happen with, quarterbacks and tight ends, but it's unlikely.
How did you come up with this?
I just thought it was interesting because you can see the names of the people going in and around the same spot. And like, how do you choose which one was the best one? So I will give you an example. Um, in my most recent draft, um, it went 3-2 with the 3-2 and the 3-3 pick. And then when it came back around to us, the 4-10 and the 4-11 pick.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And so this is running backs. Those four running backs were Travis Etienne, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kenneth Walker, and Brees Hall.
Okay.
So when I give you those four names, does one of them stick out to you as the clear winner or vice versa, like clear loser? Like
And what exact order of the four was it? It was not that it really matters, but it was Travis Etienne,
Jahmyr Gibbs,
Jahmyr Gibbs,
Brees Hall,
Brees Hall, and then
Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker. I think Travis Etienne's the one that I'd want out of those four.
Okay.
After that, I think it's kind of a crapshoot. I think it becomes preference. I think the higher upside is probably Gibbs, but I think all three are in similar situations
I
where
think all four are almost in identical situations.
I just don't think ETN's going to lose a ton of his workload to Bigsby. I mean, if he does, then I mean, I wouldn't be necessarily shocked by that, I guess. But I think that you could see. I think like if you look right now at the end of the season usage between the two back systems for all four of those guys, I see ETN with an 80 to 85% to 15-20% timeshare with Bigsby. I see Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet being like a 70-30, 65-45. And then with like Gibbs and Brees Hall, I mean, I could see it being 50-50. I think that if one of them, like if Gibbs looks as, like Gibbs to me is an interesting one, like the high risk, high reward, because I think he's the best overall talent out of any of those guys. But it's going to be dependent on, as a rookie, if he can pick up the system where it's like a veteran like Jared Goff trusts him to be out on the field more often with like pass protection and just plays in general, or just being that veteran kind of presence that like David Montgomery would give. And I think that from a fantasy perspective, if Montgomery's going to vulture touchdowns, that's going to ultimately hurt Gibbs overall. But I see the same thing happening with Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook. Exactly identical there, where if Aaron Rodgers trusts Dalvin Cook more, he's going to be on the field more than Brees Hall. And Aaron Rodgers has shown no fear in calling out young players that he doesn't trust or not giving them the ball.
Okay.
So, I mean, I
So
think Travis Etienne.
you're looking at what you think the workload is, and you're looking at who the QB thinks is going to be their preferred back.
Yeah, or the coach. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers kind of has shown he's running that team already. I don't think Jared Goff has that same kind of presence or personality, but I think that like with who they have as their coach and how well they did last year for what people were writing them off for, that he's going to be big in the same way with like the Bill Belichick time tree or coaching tree of just being like, if you go out and struggle with a team that expects to be a possibly above 500, make a run at the wild card or playoffs, I think that whether it's Montgomery or Gibbs that slips up, they're going to kind of favor the one who's going to help them win.
Okay. I mean, I think all four of those backs are very talented backs.
Yes,
It's
they're all very.
Brees Hall's and Kenneth Walker's second season. It's Travis Etienne's third season, but he missed his entire rookie season, so it's really his
Yeah,
second full year as well. And it's Jahmyr Gibbs' rookie season.
yeah. I think that if you're playing off, I think the other worry I would have with Hall and Kenneth Walker is their injury concerns from last season. I think Gibbs is completely fresh and healthy, so I mean, I would give him the edge from a healthy standpoint. I know Etienne didn't necessarily miss time, but he was banged up a couple weeks late in the season. He played through it, but he was definitely not as effective during those 2 or 3 weeks that he was nursing, I think, some kind of toe or ankle injury.
Yeah. I believe, here's my look at these four guys. Brees Hall and Delvin Cook, I feel like, is a true 50-50. I think Brees Hall has the talent to be a top 10 back throughout his career, and his teammate happens to be a top 10 back throughout his career, and really like a top 5 back. So they're like very talented backfield. Whereas Detroit, Montgomery is Montgomery, average. Like,
Yeah,
has
I've never been a
Montgomery
big
ever had a top 20 season?
no, and I've never been a big Montgomery fan. Like I was completely okay with the Bears not paying him.
So I do believe that there is opportunity for Jahmyr Gibbs to have a larger share than Montgomery. Um, and then I believe Jahmyr Gibbs offers the most receiving upside of any of those four backs.
Yes, I agree
And
100% with that.
I think we've heard before in the past how a pass catch by the running back is equal to 10 rushing yards or something like that.
Yes.
Like, generally, you're getting that half point for the PPR, and generally, a reception's also picking up 5 yards. So it takes 10 rushing yards for every reception.
Yeah.
Travis Etienne, I think, is very talented, but he struggled to get into the end zone. And so I feel like he just might be a between the 20s type of back. And Tank Bigsby is going to be the power rusher end zone guy. So I have a little bit of concern about Travis Etienne's touchdown numbers. And then Kenneth Walker, I believe, is in the same situation where I believe Zach Charbonnet was brought in to be a better power back.
Yeah.
I think Kenneth Walker has a little bit more inside the 20 rushing chops, but a little less receiving ability than Travis Etienne.
I think the safe play would be an ETN just because of volume, but I think the like high risk, big ceiling guy would be Gibbs out of the group of four. I mean, if Gibbs, like, let's say that Montgomery gets hurt in week one, I think Gibbs puts up comparable numbers to Bijan Robinson.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in this draft, Travis Etienne was the first taken, Jahmyr Gibbs was second, and then Brees Hall, and then Kenneth Walker. And I think that sounds right. Um, I want to introduce to you the running backs that went in between. So those running backs were drafted at 3-2, 3-3, 4-10, and 4-11. So in between round 3 and 4, the other running backs that were taken were Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Aaron Jones, Dameon Pierce.
Okay.
I feel like this is a good grouping of running backs. I feel like they all have potential to put up 200 plus fantasy points. I feel like Najee Harris has elite usage, um, but he's never been efficient. So I feel like people are a little nervous. Jonathan Taylor,
I'm not a Najee Harris fan, and I'm not a Jonathan Taylor fan this year.
yeah,
I would
Jonathan
have been
Taylor,
completely okay taking Aaron Jones or
Dameon Pierce.
Dameon Pierce. But again, Dameon Pierce to me is going to rely a lot on how much better Houston is.
Right. So you've got the Colts and Houston, two of the worst teams, with Jonathan Taylor threatening to hold out. Isn't he? Was he put on the PUP list?
That I don't know.
Um, you've got Dameon Pierce on one of the worst teams in the NFL. I do think he'll have good usage.
Yeah, I think from a usage standpoint, I feel good. I drafted him because of that reason.
Yeah, I think Dameon Pierce and Najee Harris usage alone is warranted. Aaron Jones is the best offensive weapon, I think, on the Packers. I just don't think Christian Watson's there yet to say that he's their best offensive weapon.
No,
So
it's he might have the biggest flash like skill set, talent, overall athleticism, like the Kadarius Toney type, the Deshaun Jackson type. Like I think he's got that factor to him, but the consistency isn't necessarily there. He's going to have really big weeks, and he's going to have weeks where he's very quiet.
So looking at those four guys, I think the person who drafted Jonathan Taylor realizes how talented he is and was willing to take the risk and hoping that he plays this season.
Well, and you
I,
said that was in the late third round or early fourth round when Taylor got taken.
yeah,
I mean, I'd take a flyer
that's
on
all
him.
these guys.
I think there were better options though. You're telling me Jonathan Taylor went before Aaron Jones
And Najee
and went
Harris
and Najee Harris. I
and
would have
Dameon
probably
Pierce.
Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor would have been a coin flip for me. I would have absolutely taken Aaron Jones over Jonathan Taylor.
What about Dameon Pierce?
I would have taken Dameon Pierce over Najee or Jonathan Taylor as well.
Okay. Well, they all went pretty close together. Um, so let's switch to another Boxty. This is a wide receiver one. It went Mike Williams at 6'5", or Jerry Jeudy at 6'4", Mike Williams at 6'5", and then coming back on the turn, Christian Kirk at 7'8", and Treylon Burks at 7'9".
Okay. I like Jeudy. Obviously, that looks worse now just because he's hurt, but Jeudy to me is the best overall talent out of that group. Mike Williams, again, I worry about his health. Him and Jonathan Taylor are my stay away from guys this year just because they bit me in the ass last year when they both barely played. Um,
Don't you love it when it's like you're just like have remorse for having them on your team from last year? So you're like, I'm not
yeah.
interested in having them at all.
So my problem with Mike Williams this year, even if you told me he was going to play every game, is he's the big threat, touchdown, big play type receiver in that offense. Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen both like Quentin Johnson's is a younger version of what that could be. And Austin Eckler had so many touchdowns last year that I just don't see Williams, even if he was playing all season long, being able to put up.
And they have Josh Palmer still.
Yeah, that those type of numbers just don't seem feasible to me. Like if
And
you
with
told me
his
that
injury history too.
if you told me that Mike Williams was going to stay healthy, I could still see him only putting up 800 or 900 yards with 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think he's capable of like an 11 or 1200 yard season with double digit touchdowns. I just don't know how likely that is.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think Jerry Jeudy's the most talented. Um, he is injured, but I personally have been through pulled hamstrings and they don't last very long. So he might miss a week or two, but I think he's worth rostering. And I think you can survive 2 weeks without Jerry Jeudy.
I like Jerry Jeudy the most. I mean, he was wide receiver number one in that offense. He was a top 10 guy for a stretch of, I think, 6 games when him and Russell Wilson
Yeah.
started to connect. And I think they're going to be better overall this year.
Yeah. And Jerry Jeudy gets open.
Jerry Jeudy
His
is,
hands are just sometimes a problem. Too many drops, too many missed
yep,
opportunities.
but he still gets the targets. That's my thing with like even a veteran quarterback like Russell Wilson. He kept targeting him. Like it wasn't an Aaron Rodgers like, oh, you dropped one ball, so I'm not throwing to you anymore.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
like I'm still gonna throw to you if you're open. Um, I don't like Traylon Burks. I like him as a player. Like I think he'd be a good player on a different team. Um, I don't trust Ryan Tannehill at all, and it's going to be the
Oh
Derrick
yeah,
Henry, DeAndre Hopkins show. So
I do not trust Traylon Burks at all. He is last on my list. And then I think Christian Kirk is fine. 7-8 was what he went. He could easily have 1,000 yards as wide receiver two for Jacksonville.
yep,
Um,
I like Kirk. I think again there. I think Calvin Ridley's the guy to own.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I see Christian Kirk and Mike Williams being in the same boat. Just there's a lot to mouths to feed. They're both talented guys. When they get 100% of the first looks, they could, theoretically be better, but they're going to be on offenses that spread the ball around.
I mean, it's situationally funny to think about how that stuff works because, like, let's say you put Mike Williams on. Let's say I'm trying to find a team that would be like they don't have like if you put Mike Williams even on a team to me like the
Put them
Giants.
on the Chiefs, the Giants,
Oh God, or you put him on the
Houston.
Chiefs. Yeah. If you told me that Mike Williams was going to stay healthy for 17 games and he was with Patrick Mahomes, I mean that guy's a second or third round pick probably in the draft. But it's funny that the opposite's true too. If you had an Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson, Keenan Allen, but you had Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson right now as your quarterback, you're probably worried about all three of them because you're like, who's going to wind up being the like spotlight statistical monster in that offense? And I don't know that it's anybody because everybody's kind of taking from each other. So just weird to, or it's just interesting to think about if you put certain players at different positions, how different that would change their draft position and fantasy outlook.
Oh, for sure. It definitely makes a difference on what these rosters are composed of. That's how
Yeah.
that's why Waller's value has shot through the roof because he is on the New York Giants. And there's literally no wide receiver who has more credentials than Darren Waller at tight end. Like,
No, it's honestly feasible that when you look at the Giants offense when the season gets done, the top two targets leaders are going to be Darren Waller and Saquon
Saquon.
Barkley.
Yep, their wide receivers won't be it.
No.
Yep, yep. Just for some further insight, Terry McLaurin and Drake London went before Jerry Jeudy in this draft. How does that make you feel?
I like both, but I'm probably still taking Jerry Jeudy before the injury, knowing that was going to happen. I would have taken Jerry Jeudy before I take those two.
Yeah, I think I would have gone Jeudy, uh, London, McLaurin.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, McLaurin to me is just one of those guys that seems to be a decent producer, but I just don't like taking like people that like Gabe, like we talked about the one episode about like Gabe Davis. Like there are people that really like taking him. I'm just one that I'm like I don't. And for some reason McLaurin, even when he's been decent, is just a guy that I'm like I don't know. I just kind of stay away from. Like I would.
He's the definition of the flex spot. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think we want Terry McLaurin as your top two wide receiver.
No.
But if you got him for your flex spot, like you'd be like, okay, that's fine. Like he's startable. He's gonna have plenty of good weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's at that point you're just splitting hairs with who you take. Like to me, it's all preference based at that point. Like what you're looking for, how your league's set up. Like McLaurin's a better option in a PPR league because he's gonna get 6 to 7 targets or 8 targets or 6 catches for 80 yards, and you're talking 14 points in a PPR versus somebody like Jerry Jeudy on his bad weeks might be 2 catches for 30 yards. And on his good weeks, he's 7 for 150. Like,
Yeah. Okay. All right. The last Boxty that happened in this draft is at running back, and it went Rashad White 6'9", Javonte Williams 6'10". Around the turn, James Cook 7'3", James Conner 7'4".
I mean, I'm thinking if you're talking, I think that's about as even as you can get. Like, honestly, I'd be good with any combination of those two. Javante is the only one to me that sticks out a little as a worry just because of injury
Yeah,
concerns from last year.
we don't know yet.
We don't know, but if Javante comes back healthy, he could be a top 10 to 15 running back this year, and you stole him that late in the draft. Like
Right.
if I had my running backs and Javante was my flex possible option or a bye week filling running back, I would feel really good about having him there. If he's my number 2 back and I'm counting on him to put up numbers every week as the 2 back, I probably worry a little bit. But
He was the 25th running back drafted, Javonte.
I think that's late.
I think it is a little late too. Rashad White went before Javonte. I do think Rashad White is a bell cow back. I don't think he's got a lot of competition behind him. James Conner is a bell cow back, doesn't have a lot of competition behind him. James Cook does have Damian Harris, who is a good goal line running back, but Damian Harris has been off again, on again, injured recently.
Yes. I
Javonte
think
Williams is
that
the biggest question mark with that injury history.
he's the biggest question mark, but James Cook and Javante as your 2 running backs could wind up being top 15 guys both. And then you basically stole them in the late part of the draft. Like I like that as a somewhat risky but high payout option. I think Connor and Rashad White are the conservative volume based
Safe
options.
bets.
Yeah.
All right. in that situation, that happened to be me. I was the one who drafted Javonte Williams, James Cook in that Boxty.
Oh, I know.
Oh, you knew. You knew it was me.
And who were your two running backs prior to drafting those two? Did
Jahmyr
you?
Gibbs and Brees Hall.
Okay.
I think I've got some running backs with risk. I don't think I've got like locked in, guaranteed fantasy points from my running back position.
I think two out of those four are going to wind up being good, though.
Yeah, but
Like,
that's what I was betting. I was like, I bet you that two out of these four backs are going to be top 15 backs and good enough for what I need in fantasy.
that's all you need. Like, I like looking at the rest of your roster with like Kelsey, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, if you can get two of those guys to put up running back one numbers, you'll be fine.
Yep, that was the goal. Um, yeah, and I think it was a good return for taking Kelsey third overall meant that I passed up on Christian McCaffrey or Austin Eckler or Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Nick Chubb. Like those were probably the five guys I would have considered otherwise. And I feel like I ended up okay at running back.
I guess to me, the difference, like this thing I would like, if I'm you, that I would like to take notes on just for how the season ends. I know we talked the last episode, me and you did without Frank. We talked about your draft strategy. And I know for the most part, you stuck to a lot of the things we talked about that night. Um, we talked a little bit about the Christian McCaffrey taking that hero running back strategy as well. What I would be interested to see is pending injuries, obviously, because if Kelsey was to get hurt for some reason or McCaffrey doesn't make it through a season, which is more likely than Kelsey not making it through a season, if both stay healthy, I would be interested to see at the end of the season where McCaffrey's numbers to your best running back of who you took, the difference in that, and the
That would be
difference
a great study.
and then the difference between Kelsey's numbers and TJ Hawkinson, because I saw that Hawkinson went at like the fourth round or something. And I know
Yeah.
we talked about the McCaffrey wide receiver, and then Hawkinson
Yep.
possibility. So it'd be interesting to me to see the difference of those four guys staying healthy. Your best running back, McCaffrey, point differential, Travis Kelsey, TJ Hawkinson, what that differential is. Because I
Yeah.
think if it's anywhere close, then it's like you're splitting hairs. You can't beat yourself up going, it would have turned out the same way, just different positional value. But
Yeah. Yeah. We'll keep an eye on that. I will remember that for near the end of the season. Um, all right. Uh, do we want to move on to drafting from the sixth spot in a PPR league
yeah, we can
and
touch on that because I feel like we've talked a
strategy?
lot the last two episodes about draft strategy and different types of leagues from different positions. But I mean, I'm pretty set on what I want to do at the sixth pick in a full point PPR. I made the mistake last year of going running back, running back, running back, and I wound up with three really good running backs. You look at that team at the start of the season, and it's like, okay, you got Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, and Saquon Barkley. Like I'm sitting there going, all right, this is going to be a pretty good team. And after week one, no, by Jonathan Taylor and by Javonte Williams. So um, I think especially in the full point PPR league, I just figured Taylor catches a few passes. Barkley was a PPR machine as a running back, and
Yeah.
Javonte was a PPR supposed to be a PPR machine as well.
Hmm.
So I
He
was
should
like,
be.
okay, if I take three running backs who also catch passes, I can balance out the guys that are going wide receiver heavy. But I can tell you, I'm not making that mistake this year because the couple weeks that I lost when I still had good point outputs, facing teams that had Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill, killed me, like destroyed me. I had a good week out of Saquon Barkley, and it's like 26 points. I faced Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill the one week that they both went off for like 38 and 44. I'm like, I can't compete with that. Like,
Yeah.
I need a 200-yard, 4 touchdown game to compete with that as a running back. So
Yep.
um, I'm really sold on your strategy from the sixth spot, taking Travis Kelsey.
Yeah.
Um, it worries me now that Cooper Kupp is possibly going to miss time because I thought that in my PPR league, if it's anything telling to how many receivers went last year, I was really banking on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, and either Eckler or CMC going so that I was guaranteed Kelsey. It
Yeah,
wouldn't shock me if Kelsey gets taken at 5.
gotcha. So if Kelsey's available at 6, are you gonna lock it in? You would
Yes,
take Kelsey. Okay.
absolutely. Yep. And
Okay.
then I'm probably trying to go what you did, try to get like an Amon-Ra St. Brown or a Garrett Wilson in round 2, and then hoping that I get like a Devontae Smith or a Chris Olave in round 3. And then PPR wise, it's like tight end, wide receiver, 3 guys that all could put up top wide receiver numbers in a PPR league. And then if a quarterback I really like is there in round 4, snag a quarterback. And then rounds 5 and 6, I'm looking for a Alvin Kamara, Javonte Williams, James Conner, James Cook type of deal. And then I probably take like a Khalil Herbert in round 7.
My God. So you just listed 6 guys that all went back to back to back. When I gave you that Boxty originally with Rashad White,
Yeah.
Javonte Williams, James Conner, and James Cook, 2 other running backs went next to them. It was Alvin Kamara and Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, I would be very happy if I wound up with 3 out of those 7 running backs in picks 5, 6, 7, or rounds 4, 5, 6 around what I snag in the first 3 rounds. I think I'd be in really good shape.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm hoping happens. I might switch as much as I want to go with the PPR threat, but I think it still ties to it. If Kelsey goes at 5, I probably take Austin Eckler at 6.
Yeah. With that PPR
Yeah.
upside of Eckler. That makes total sense to me. And then that's great. You should have a bell cow running back, and then rolling the dice on a lot of those mid-round running backs could be, you know, huge hits, game winners for you.
When
Um,
I think it's the same, if depending on what happens, I'll be monitoring the same exact comparison that we just said you should monitor with your team. If I miss out on Kelsey and I have to take Eckler, I could still go Eckler, a Garrett Wilson, a Chris Olave, and then I can hope for like a Darren Waller, TJ Hawkinson in round 4. So it's what's the difference between Eckler and Kelsey essentially with Hawkinson and whatever other running back I decide to go later in the draft with. Like that kind of to me comes down to that comparison again, which
mhm.
strategy works out better. The tight end round 1 with the clear cut tight end everyone wants, or going with that top running back.
Okay. So it's a 12-team league too, right?
12-team league. Yep. I was in it last year. Everything's set up the same way. Everything else is standard. 6 bench spots, quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, flex, defense, kicker. Um,
All right. So I want to see if I can provide some insight to help you. Um, I think what you just laid out was an excellent strategy to go Kelsey, wide receiver, wide receiver. I think that's a great strategy. And then you said maybe grab a quarterback in the 4th round.
if there's one that makes sense there, like if Justin
Yeah.
Herbert's sitting there in round 4,
Yep.
I mean, I'd be still tempted at like Justin Fields in round 4. I'd be
I,
tempted
I, I,
still to go with a guy like that.
I think that's a great strategy. I'm looking at this, and what went in round 4 for this past league was Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson,
Yep.
and Trevor
I do
Lawrence
not
went
want
5-2.
I do not want Lamar. If Trevor Lawrence was there in round 5, I would snag him there. Like I would love to get Trevor Lawrence in the 5th. If I can't get a quarterback I like in those rounds, I probably hope for like an Aaron Jones maybe slides to the 4th, or I take whatever best running backs there, or maybe I take a 3rd wide receiver and just know that my 2 wide receivers flex spot are 3 PPR machines from wide receiver with Kelsey paired up with it,
Right.
and then I hope for Geno Smith in round like 7 or 8.
Right. Like if Keenan Allen happens to be there,
Yeah,
Calvin Ridley happens to be there,
yeah.
that could be league winning.
I mean, that would
Um,
be a dream draft if you could go Kelsey, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, and even like a guy like Chris Godwin or Mike Evans. Like I would consider there, like just because one of them's going to be a target. I would stay away more from Chris Godwin, I think, than Mike Evans, but even if another guy's
I
sitting
could
there, like
see
if
it's gonna
Calvin
it's gonna
Ridley's
be
there,
hard to come back around that far and those guys to still be there.
yeah,
I would bet you I would bet you at the 6-6 spot that you could get somebody like Devontae, Amon-Ra, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave coming back around to your spot. I think you're looking at Devonta, Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf ish type guys,
which I
Calvin
would be
Ridley.
okay with any of them too.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
Um, and then I would think you would have a shot at Justin Fields or Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence at the end of the fourth, early fifth.
Yeah, I think my big thing is like being able to know that I'd be okay with like Geno Smith later in the draft. I'm not going to absolutely reach on that quarterback even in round 4 unless somebody's like slipping through, like if everybody's hammering running back, wide receiver, tight end, and somehow a guy like Joe Burrow or Josh Allen are sitting there in the 4th, then absolutely. But
Yeah, yeah. I think I think it's an 8 quarterback league this year. I think there's the top 4 and the second 4. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow are the first 4, and
mm-hmm.
then Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Trevor Lawrence are the second 4.
Yeah.
After that, I think there's a lot of comparable QBs that you could pick up late. Um, so I think that's a great strategy, like Kelsey, wide receiver, and then
Especially in a PPR league. I mean, you
mm-hmm.
could have that's my thing is like I was talking
Nobody's
to
going to match Kelsey at the tight
no.
end position.
And I was talking to 2 of my softball dads the other day who were doing fantasy drafts, and they're doing half point PPRs like your league was. So we were talking about same kind of thing. Though it's funny that Scotty, the one dad, has the 3rd pick, and his league is like identically set up to yours, except there's 3 wide receiver spots. So we talked about the possibility of the hero running back strategy. We talked about the loading up on wideouts right away because at the 3rd spot he's guaranteed CMC, Chase, or Jefferson. So we kind of talked through the same thing me and you talked about your draft the other night. Um, it's just I don't the full PPR versus the half a point PPR. We talked a lot about the difference in what running backs need to do on bad games to match a wide receiver's bad game. So like you take Travis Kelsey, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and even a Chris Olave, let's say their bad weeks are each 6 catches, 50 yards. That's a bad week for those 3 guys. That's 11 points. That's 11 fantasy points. So I get 33 points out of my tight end spot and 2 wide receiver spots. A bad game out of a running back could be 30 carries for 52 yards and no touchdowns and no catches, and you get 5 points. Like I get 5 points out of 3 spots now, and I'm sitting with 15, and I just got outscored by 3 bad games from wideout positions, and I'm losing 33 to 15. Like,
Yep.
I think that's an equalizer, and the half point PPR makes it a little bit more balanceable between a running back to a wide receiver or a high end tight end. But I think in a full point PPR,
you have to go wide receivers
you
first.
have to.
Yep. I think half PPR is the sweet spot for scoring leagues.
I agree. I don't think 1 catch should be worth as much as 10 yards on the ground. I mean, I think if you took a average NFL fan and said, "Hey, suit him up and put him into an NFL game," to get 10 yards rushing on the ground would be a lot harder than them just catching 1 ball and then getting killed. Like, I mean, that's how I look at that. It's like it is so hard to pick up 1 yard with a running back. Like to catch one, you could catch 1 ball and go for -2 yards and you still get points. Like,
right. A catch for negative yards and still end up positive. Yeah, but I do think that the half PPR leveled the playing field because before that, leagues were mostly running back dominant.
I would prefer the half point because of that. Because if you do no PPR, it's back to running backs possibly being a little bit more of an edge. If it's full point PPR, it's 100% pass catchers, and if it's in the between, it's like you could see it go either way.
Yep, exactly. So that's one strategy. So let's talk through the strategy where you don't get Kelsey and then call it an episode.
Okay.
Um, so you're going to your draft, and Kelsey gets selected before you at
Don't put that evil
6.
on me first off, but
I want to say that you have good hopes though for drafting an excellent team without Kelsey.
yeah.
So let's talk through how do you make that help happen. So who
So
would you take at 6 overall then if Kelsey's off the board?
I mean, my realistic option of who's left would be Eckler. Would be kind of the guy I would have to consider taking in that spot. As much as maybe I don't want to take a running back, CMC is never lasting to that spot. Um, I'm assuming if Kelsey's going, that Tyreek Hill is gone because I would love to have him slide to 6. Like
I
if
agree.
Kelsey went and Hill was still there, it's Tyreek Hill easily. Um, I I before the Cooper Cup setback, I
Right.
was fine if I had to take Cup at 6, but now it's like I don't want to.
Right.
I just don't. I
I
can't take you can't take a guy in the first pick of your draft that's going to miss possibly 4 weeks of the season to start. You just can't do it.
nope. I
So
think if that's what the news is 4 weeks, like he's sliding to the second round,
I would
which
consider honestly if I didn't want to take a running back at all, like at pick 6, if I don't want to take Eckler, obviously every running back else is left on the board at that point because if Christian McCaffrey's the only one who's gone so far, I
yep.
would be tempted to take Stephon Diggs at 6 because I think I have him right behind Cup at like
Hmm.
that 7-8 spot if everything went the way it is. But
Hmm.
obviously that would slide up now with Cooper Cup being unsure on week 1 and possibly week 2. So
Yep.
I wouldn't hate that. I think Stephon Diggs is just a hair of a drop off
Yep.
from the other guys. But
Yep. I think it go. Let's say it went Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Travis Kelsey gets drafted, Tyreek Hill gets drafted.
that's my worst case scenario.
So now you're looking at Eckler, Cup, Stephon Diggs, Nick Chubb,
Yeah. I love Nick
Saquon.
Chubb this year, but again, at pick 6, when he's a projected like back end first round guy, possibly early second round guy. I mean, I love Tony Pollard. I think Pollard could have a monster year with the PPR catchability that he showed the last 2 years. But again, that's so far ahead of where they're being drafted.
Yep.
And Chubb, to me, as much as he's got the ability to be running back 1 this year because there's nobody else to steal pass catching from him, and he is actually a good receiver. I just have yet to see him be involved in the receiving game the way that people are projecting him to.
Hmm.
So that part would be just a little bit of the uncertain for taking him that high.
So let's say you do go hero running back Austin Eckler. Okay, I think it's a great pick. What Eckler gets like 100 targets a year. Like
He's going to catch 60, 70 passes. Like,
so you got to think that like you're you're getting a great value before anybody else does. Um, are you going to avoid running back with your next pick then when it comes back around?
100% unless if there are 3 running backs that if they were left on the board, well, 4 running backs, but I know 3 of them guaranteed. I mean, I think all 4 are never going to be there at my next pick. But if these 4 running backs were still there in round 2, I would double up on running back. If it's Saquon Barkley,
Won't be
Chubb,
there. Won't be
Bijan
there.
Robinson,
Won't be there.
or Tony Pollard were there,
They won't be there.
that's who I would be like, okay, I'll go back to back. Or Derrick Henry. I'm
They
like,
won't be there. All 5 of them are going to be gone.
and that's my thought too. But if one of those 5 were there, I would really have to consider going, okay, am I going to go back to the running back strategy? But I think that's how anybody would draft. Your strategy changes when guys don't get picked where they're supposed to. And you're like, a guy like that fell to me. Like, I can't say no to that.
Okay. So let's assume that yeah, you would pick them if they were there, but they're not going to be there. So what position are you drafting with your second overall pick then?
Wide receiver.
All right. So then let's say Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, CeeDee Lamb. Who knows? Are there? Would you be comfortable taking any one of them?
I would. I like CD Lamb a lot.
I do too.
And I
And
really like Garrett
and yours
Wilson.
is
And
a
I
full
really like,
PPR.
yes, I love CD Lamb. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I love Garrett Wilson. So if I don't know how I would pick between those three if all three of them are there. Like,
Okay. Well,
I,
let's say you get one of them.
yeah,
Okay. So it comes back around to the third round. You have got Austin Eckler, and you say you got AJ Brown.
yep.
Okay. We'll go with one of them that you didn't list, but you got them. So now you
He's
have
actually the one I would probably avoid out of all of them, but that we'll go
that's who
with
you
that
ended
for
up.
that.
You ended up with him, but you've got one running back, one wide receiver.
Yep.
It's the third round. Are you gonna go back for wide receiver? Are you thinking quarterback or tight end? Going with one of those only one
In the
position
middle
players.
in the middle of the third round, if Mark Andrews is there, because I think that's a little late of where he's going right now in those type of drafts, I would probably go Mark Andrews if he was there. If Mark Andrews isn't there, I'm going wide receiver again, and I'm hoping for a Waller or Hawkinson in round 4.
Okay.
I still think at that point that there's no way I'm taking a quarterback. Like, I think in that third round, like there's a chance that one of those Joe Burrows of the world. I'm not taking Joe Burrow in the third round. I think he's great and he's won me some games and leagues. He won me the one league when I had him and Josh Allen, but I just
Okay. So let's say um, you're in your current rankings. Do you have it Travis Kelsey, Mark Andrews, T.J. Hawkinson?
yes.
Okay. Let's say Mark Andrews is selected before your pick. So you've got Austin Eckler, a wide receiver, and you're picking third, and Mark Andrews isn't available,
Mhm.
but Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts are available, or you could have another wide receiver, running back, or T.J. Hawkinson.
I think I want another wide receiver. This is in round 3 or in round 4?
Round three.
Yeah, round 3, I'm probably going another wide receiver. Like, I want that PPR stack of if I don't get Kelsey, if I can PPR stack Eckler and 2 high end receivers, that's what I'm gonna go.
Okay. 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 You never know how it's going to unfold, but I could see that.
Like, my
Um,
ideal situation is Kelsey, wide receiver, wide receiver, Hawkinson,
QB.
possibly a quarterback, and then Alvin Kamara, a James Cook, and then Khalil Herbert or something like that. Like, that would be perfect world. Like, I would be really happy if that was the base of my team.
Yeah, that would be a great team. I do believe you have a chance at landing Darren Waller or TJ Hawkinson in the fourth round.
I think it's possible. I looked at your draft with a
If
half point PPR. I think in a full point PPR, there's a chance people reach for guys like that in the third.
Yeah, and you don't want to reach for him.
Well, and that's why it's a no brainer if Kelsey's there at 6 that I take Kelsey, so that
Yeah,
you put in everybody's head. Everyone knows Kelsey's going to go, but it puts in everybody's head who's going to get the next tight end after that.
yeah,
And then hopefully in the third round, people start reaching on tight ends, or like you see like Waller, Hawkinson, Andrews all go in the third round, where now it just bumped a couple receivers to me in that pick that might not have been there.
yep,
That's kind of dream scenario for me.
yeah. And a full point PPR, I feel like these tight ends are going to be going fast.
Yeah.
So if you don't get Kelsey, I feel like you will have a decision to make in the third round of like, do I go with the tight end that soon?
Yeah. And
Or,
I don't, and if I don't get Kelsey, and even if I missed out on like Hawkinson or something in the fourth, like if that's where I was sitting on him, I have no problem like in round 7, 8, 9, where he's been typically going, taking a guy like David Njoku. Like, I think
yeah,
Njoku's going to have a good year. He showed chemistry with Deshaun Watson. He's a red zone target. He's kind of a possession type guy too. I have no problem if that's the guy I have to settle for. Like,
hmm,
obviously he's probably tight end number 8 or 9 out of the top 10 list, but I wouldn't be upset with that depending on what the rest of the team looked like.
all right. So I have your draft going. Austin Eckler, uh, Garrett Wilson,
I would like that.
And then we're gonna say tight ends are just too much around this point in the draft. And so you take Devonta Smith.
I'd be okay with that too.
So you went Eckler, Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith. In the fourth round, you get Justin Herbert. So now you've got
I'd
two
be
wide
okay with that.
receivers, one running back, one quarterback. So now you just need to fill in the rest of your team with depth that I think will be there available later in the draft. And if you're content with getting David Njoku or
Yeah.
Pat Fryermuth,
Yeah.
you know,
Or
in
even
the
like a Greg Dulcich. I mean,
Greg
now that
Dulcich,
Judy's out, like he had a decent productive half a season with 10 games or whatever, and a terrible offense with a terrible Russell Wilson. Like, I think that's a great starting spot. As much as that's not the way I want the draft to go, because I do want to go with the Kelsey draft strategy. I'd
yeah,
be completely happy with the guys you named, and then in rounds like 5, 6, and 7, snagging guys like a Deontay Johnson, who's going to be a PPR machine, even if his touchdowns aren't there. Like he'd be a great flex wide receiver in a full PPR league. And then grabbing two more running backs like Javonte Williams or Alvin Kamara, and like James Cook or Khalil Herbert or Rashad White. Like I think all those guys will be available kind of
yeah.
in that area.
All right. Well, I hope that helped you think it through. That is the wrap for today's episode. We will be back next time with probably, yeah, today's Friday already. So sometime before Thursday's season opener, maybe we'll get an episode out this weekend. I am expecting to have my second child, so I may or may not be available, but
Not an excuse.
yeah, but
Bring it into the ER room.
just be like, hold on, honey, got to set up this podcast real quick.
I'm telling
So
you right now, if I don't get Travis Kelsey, I'm never doing one of these again because you put that evil on me that he's going to be gone by pick 5.
the evil is the people you're drafting against.
No,
Okay.
you put that evil on me.
Have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk to you next time.
Adios.
Bye, Jordan.
Bye.